Hey guys, how you going? Hope you're all doing very well. This evening I'm going to be doing another movie review for you all. This movie is a horror film from Argentina, Spanish language, English subs, released in the year 2017, directed by Luciano and Nicolas Zanetti. This film is called What the Waters Left Behind. So What the Waters Left Behind is set in Epecuén, which is a town in 1985 that was flooded by a broken dam and it had been uninhabitable for so many years. So a group of friends have decided to do a documentary about this, and so they travel out there, but they realise, surprise, surprise, they're not alone, and now the documentary has turned into a fight for survival. So whether or not they do survive, something you're going to have to find out for yourself, because that's as far as I'm going with my synopsis. Now my thoughts on What the Waters Left Behind. When this trailer first dropped many years ago, I was so excited to go out there and see it. Number one, it's an Argentine horror film, and number two, it was an extreme looking horror film. And so I was actually shown this trailer by a few friends of mine who are fans of the extreme horror scene, and they too were very excited to go and see it. So when I contacted the people who made this film on Facebook, they were saying that this is going to get a worldwide release in a few days, and so I was really excited to finally get the chance to watch it. But unfortunately that wait had gone from a few days to a few weeks to a few months, and a few months to a few years, and eventually I just completely forgotten about it because I was so frustrated. I don't know what happened with the marketing, but they really dropped the ball, because other movies come onto my radar and I just completely left this one behind. And I know a lot of other people did the same thing, and so if this was actually released when the trailer dropped, I do believe a lot more people would have actually gone out there and watched it. But after being reminded of this movie, when I come across the opportunity to watch it, I thought hopefully this is another Argentine horror film that I can happily recommend, and having the excuse of just being poorly marketed is something that I was hoping could invent that sense of excitement that it produced when the trailer first came out. But unfortunately, after watching What the Waters Left Behind, I will say that this is basically a film you could leave behind. Now, it doesn't come without its positive. There are some strong positives. This is a film where the directors can create a sense of atmosphere. Epecuén is a fantastic setting. It's very similar to the setting of Chernobyl, where people had to leave this area. It's a very interesting era in history, and so you're learning something new, and at the same time that horror setting is playing a character of its own. You don't know where the threat is coming from, but you know that something is really off. And so I thought that used it very well in this film, and it does set a very solid template for the rest of the film to jump off. It's a movie that is a clear homage to 1970s, Texas Chainsaw Massacre especially, so it is clearly inspired by the great horror films, which gives the impression that these are horror fans as well as horror directors, and so I like that. I thought the cinematography felt very 1970s, which is a little bit random because it wasn't really set in the 1970s, and so that seemed a little bit disjointing, but I wasn't going to let that ruin the experience. I thought as though some of the villains were actually fairly creepy, and I thought the effects were actually quite decent. There's some gore effects that I thought were really well done. So it's a movie that has a lot of talent. It's not a film that is so bad that it just doesn't have any redeeming qualities. I will say that these qualities are the reason why you'd probably go out there and see it, but unfortunately there is a really good film hiding underneath the really weak execution that this film produces, in that there's a lot of random stuff, and that random stuff is thrown at the audience, and they're seeing what sticks and what doesn't stick, and unfortunately there's a lot more that doesn't stick. And so it doesn't know how to create a story. It doesn't know how to capitalize upon that setting of anticipation, what's around the corner. They use their aces up way too quickly, and the movie just stays very stagnant. It doesn't feel as though it has any elevation. It's not a roller coaster ride, and that randomness through the soundtrack I thought ruined a lot of the tense build-up. I thought as though it didn't really belong, and so that lack of self-awareness in the soundtrack really takes you out of the experience. I thought there was some really random sexual content that was thrown in there to appeal to the adolescent audience, and there was some gore effects that, although it was very good, it didn't have any impact behind it, because you don't care about the characters. These are characters that are good to look at, but unfortunately it's all very superficial. And so does the film want to appeal to mature audiences that will actually get something out of the setting and the story behind the setting, or does it want to be a teenage sort of Friday the 13th horror film where it doesn't want to concentrate on giving you anything with depth? It just wants to have that superficial quality. And so you have a really interesting story that's not being told, therefore you become very frustrated. And by the end of it, I just didn't really care about it. I mean, it was becoming very boring very quickly. And unfortunately, that excitement I had for the trailer, when I finally got the opportunity to watch the film, I will say that it was definitely one that I could have passed the opportunity and I really wasn't missing much. Apparently this has a sequel, so obviously enough people actually enjoyed it, each to their own. If you like this kind of thing, then it's good for you. But for me, I wanted so much more because I knew that there was a really solid horror film underneath, but unfortunately it just didn't get enough, it didn't get a chance to shine because it didn't know how to execute all that potential that it had. So it just becomes a really superficial, boring experience that I wouldn't recommend. But if you are after something, you're desperate to see a movie on a Friday night, then by all means, this is not the worst horror film ever made. But for me, it's all about how it looks, and all of that potential in the content is never executed in a way that I thought was satisfying. So overall, for What the Waters Left Behind, I'm only going to give this one star. Really, really disappointing. Alright guys, that's it for my review. Hope you enjoyed it. Till next time, keep watching movies, and I'll see you later.